So I'm going to go ahead and get started so we can zip through a couple of these things and then finish on time. Apologize for the little bit of technical difficulties and the fact that I've already spilt a soda. So, but that's life, right? So my name is Jackie Garrick, and I am the founder of an organization called Whistleblowers of America. Pretty small nonprofit, but we have a pretty big mission. When I created Whistleblowers of America, it was because I had been at the Pentagon. I was the director of the Defense Suicide Prevention Office, and I felt like there were some conflicts of interest with contracting. So I made a disclosure. You know, you've all seen the see something, say something slides. I saw one here with a tiger walking through a library that advises all the students here on how to report wrongdoing if you see it. So these signs and these prompts are all around us to see something, say something, or to speak up, right? Have a speak up culture. You hear those words every day as you're walking through the halls here and maybe in your class, while you're reading something on the internet, while you're listening to a podcast. You're hearing these prompts constantly. But then the real question becomes, would you? Would you stand up, stand tall, stick your neck out, and risk the criticism of being a giraffe? So I call it Be a Giraffe, and I use the giraffe as the mascot for Whistleblowers of America because I thought it made a really good visual image of what it is whistleblowers are actually doing, right? Because when you think of a whistle, you think of a referee, you think loud and shrill, annoying maybe, but that's not what we do as whistleblowers. We're usually professional, we're speaking our mind, we're doing what we think we're doing. Some of us, if you're anybody going to be a social worker or a doctor, nurse, anybody in here like that? No? Yep. So we're mandated reporters. In some cases, your profession will require you to make disclosures of wrongdoing. And so I'm going to have to walk back and forth. Yes. It should be the forward spacing button. Yep.
Is that the right one? There we go.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So, we were going to try to do this as a Slido slide, but the school apparently isn't going to let me connect to Slido. So, really quick, what are some of the words off the top of your head that you think of when you hear the word whistleblower? Anybody?
Tattletale.
What was that?
I said tattletale.
Tattletale. Yes, very good, because that's Microsoft would give you 100.
Snitch.
Snitch, yes. Informant. Anybody else got a word for me?
Risk taker.
Risk. Oh, see, now I like you. Microsoft, though, would like you, because that's their synonyms. And they pull their synonyms from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Rat, snitch, tattletale, stool pigeon. But yet, when we think about whistleblowing, we think about something very positive, right? Standing tall, speaking up. Those sound like good things. And yet, the synonyms are negative. So we live in this very mixed message world when we start thinking about doing the right thing. Next slide. So as I went through my own experience of whistleblowing, and my life and my career took this very long and winding road that I wasn't expecting. To make a very long story short, it took about 5 years of a process. but I got removed from my job. I had to leave government. I had to fight my case. I hired an attorney for a little while, ran out of money, had to represent myself pro se without an attorney, and took 5 years. But finally, for us government employees, we don't go to court like regular people. We have to go through something called the Office of Special Counsel that then investigates, and then they give you a letter that lets you take it to the Merit System Protection Board. And so all that happens, takes 5 years, and I win my case at the Merit System Protection Board. An administrative law judge agreed that there was animus in my case. So while all this is going on, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on, I'm beginning to have all these responses and reactions to the whistleblowing and being called a whistleblower, things I had never even thought of that I was doing. So when I start to look into this, now I've been a social worker for 40 years, and I thought I spent most of my life, I'm a former Army officer. I have worked with combat trauma and post-traumatic stress, PTSD, depression, anxiety. That has been most of my adult career. But I was starting to feel some of those same things. I was waking up from nightmares, from cold sweats. I was having all this stress and anxiety. And it's a very destabilizing feeling. Depressed, not wanting to get out of bed. And I thought, this all sounds very familiar to me, right? This is everything I've ever heard a combat vet tell me about a hostile combat zone. And then I thought, oh, combat zones are hostile. We have hostilities. A hostile work environment. Like all of a sudden I was starting to see these parallels between this type of a workplace and a combat zone. And I once had a combat vet say to me, who was also a whistleblower, he was like, oh, getting shot at was easy. These personal attacks are so much harder to process, because you can process war zone, uniform, country, enemy, colleague. But in this very destabilized workplace where you don't know who to trust, you have felt very betrayed, this is a very hard issue to confront and understand. So when I've tried to take what I know about wrongdoing and retaliation and the toxic tactics, and I've got a whole other lecture on that, we won't go into all that today, I come up with this idea of Ubuntu. Has anybody ever heard this expression before, right? So as I was doing a lot of this work, I met a woman from South Africa. I told her about my giraffe theory. She invited me to come to do some lectures in South Africa in Johannesburg. And I presented at the Mandela Institute on whistleblower protections. But as we were doing all of this stuff and we were driving around and she knew my mascot, we decided we needed to go on safari and see some real giraffes. So and as we're going through all this process and we're having these back and forth conversations, she tells me the story of Ubuntu. I am because we are. And it's it has its roots in the Zulu language. But in Africa, and in South Africa, where she was from, it's a very common thing to say to somebody, Ubuntu. Her example was driving home one night in the rain, and there were these two young black boys running through the neighborhood, and in South Africa they say black. She saw them running, and she opened up her car door, and she said, get in, I'll drive you home. And she said they backed up. They were like a little frightened of her. She's white. And she just looked at them and went, Ubuntu. And they scrambled into her car. They understood each other. Language spoke, and they understood the cultural language spoke to them. So when I started to think about this concept, again, for Be a Giraffe, so our little story here, the main character, her name is Ubuntu, and we follow her through sort of a journey of her life, and we start to think about how this concept applies to us and the workplace. So does anybody relate to that? Anybody have an idea of like what makes people connect? How do we see our humanity connecting to each other? What do we do? What do we do every day? Yes, we communicate with each other.
Find commonalities.
We find commonalities. We're civil. We understand each other and we make connections because we have this I am because we are mentality. Human beings need human beings. We know that as an aspect of recovering from, if people are isolated and alone. We saw this during COVID, right? People were more depressed, more anxious, more suicidal because they were isolated and kept away from their family members, their friends. You couldn't come into the school. As much as this may seem like a hassle at times, it feeds our humanity, it feeds our need, it feeds our brains, and we need that. Next slide. So I think a really important next question then is if we understand this connection of humanity, how do we operationalize that? And we operationalize how we treat each other by having this moral code and this moral compass. Now, I can sit here and I can tell you all kinds of stories about me and my life and what made me a great leader, and I did this and I did that, but none of that matters to you because the secret is you, each one of you, have to figure out for yourselves what kind of person you're going to be, what kind of leader am I going to be. And that doesn't mean standing on a stage and giving talks to hundreds or thousands of people sometimes. It means maybe if you're on a team of one or two, or you're doing a group project and you're having to cooperate with somebody else. What is your sense of ethics? What's your character? And we all come by that a little differently, right? We all have different backgrounds. I'm a Jewish girl from New York. I grew up very different than maybe people in the South grew up, or people in other countries. Certainly, we see all kinds of cultures and people having to come together. But I have noticed that when I travel and I'm meeting people and I'm doing talks like this all over the world. I've been in 5 countries now presenting on whistleblower retaliation and human rights and the Be a Giraffe stuff. We connect because when we communicate, when we have that dialogue, we connect. And it doesn't always matter that we all have the same background, right? We don't. We don't always have to have the same background, but we value the same things, or we'll find the same thing important. And we'll start to build teams and our understanding of how to lead based on that. So the very foundation of having business ethics or just ethics for life is knowing, first of all, what are your own values? And so that's where some of this begins. It begins with you. I mean, you can read a lot of great books about, governors and mayors and presidents and corporate CEOs. They all have books out there, right? But all you're going to learn is how they led. Like, what challenges did they overcome? That's not necessarily going to tell you how you're going to figure out your challenges and how you're going to overcome those things. And so instead of writing another one of those really boring business ethics books, I thought we needed to start with some really simple, good basics, because once you have your building blocks, you can think about this and do this for yourselves. Next slide. So how can you remember to be a giraffe? What are your, we use this idea of a 6-word story. How do you tell a story in 6 words? Ernest Hemingway was once challenged to tell it. Could you tell a story in 6 words? He had a very interesting writing style. So he said, and I don't always get the order right, baby shoes for sale, never worn, right? That tells you a story. That tells you a lot of story, and it gives you a very emotional response to that story. So if you think about your own lives for a minute, and there's an exercise, the first exercise in the books, if you want to look at the book and maybe start jotting some things down, it asks you to think about who you are in the world and what are some of the aspects of your own character that are helpful to you. I took that picture. And if we had more time, we would do some of the readings from the book. But I'm going to let you kind of do that on your own. But for a minute, I thought we would think about this I am idea. What about your character? Like, how would you, if I walked up to you in a party and I said, tell me about you. Don't tell me what you do, right? Human beings versus human doings. If I walked up and I said, tell me about you, what would be some of the first things you would say? Anybody have any thoughts? You're helpful. Yes. Okay. Are you a social worker too? No. Not yet.
I'm safe.
Safe. You're a safe person to talk to. Good.
I would say artsy and animals.
Artsy and animal lover. Okay, well then you're going to love all our giraffe stuff. So these are the things we are, right? So when I say, gee, I'm really struggling with a problem, I'm at work and I need to make a disclosure, who do I want to talk to? I want to talk to the people I can look around my office and go, well, she's helpful, she's safe, she likes animals, maybe we'll start talking about the dogs we both have, and we'll build that rapport, right? Because that's what starts to make those connections, the communication, the dialogue, that enables us to start thinking about who we are in this world, right? Next slide. So how different are we? We can connect based on some of these very important ideas and goals, because we all have the same kind of fears, anxieties, no matter what you see on the outside, no matter how somebody's dressed, how fancy, not so fancy, tall, short, dark hair, light hair, no matter what we look like on the outside, we have a lot of commonalities on the inside. So we're not very different. But what gets in the way? Right?
There's a conflict between social situations and humanity situations.
Okay, tell me more about what you mean.
Like humanity, we all know that we need each other and we help each other out and to be social, to be a group, to help each other to survive. But then in social stuff, you have like personal viewpoints, like religion and racism, trust issues. You have, lock your doors at night because you can't trust anybody. Social companionship, it's like it kind of goes against what we try to be as a humanity group as well.
Right. So I think you've tapped into something really important. So we have two human needs that are conflicting with each other. I said earlier we have a need to have that human interaction. But we're also a little selfish at our core. And when we're selfish, which is like, it's Darwin's survival, right? Being a little selfish. We hoard all our acorns for the winter where we want to be. We want to take care of ourselves and our family, so we build up our acorn little nests like little squirrels. And then if we see a neighbor with a need, we might go, oh, well, here, have an acorn. Or we might try to be helpful and share. Or, hey, there are some really good acorns over there, and we start to share. But if we really need our own acorns, we'll say, no, don't come here. I like you. I don't like you that much. I trust you. I don't 100% trust you. Right? In God we trust, all others bring data. Right? There's a certain amount of that push-pull between our humanity and our own sense of needs. And we're constantly having to figure that out when we go into business or we're in school and we're having these transactional relationships. How do we know who to trust? How do we know who we tell the truth to? Who is going to see me as a truth teller? Who's going to see me as a stool pigeon? Because there are some very high, powerful people, often very invested in the corruption and the covering up of the bad stuff. Next. Okay, so diversity. Diversity has become divisive, but what does it really mean when we talk about diversity? Is it really just about race and religion? You mentioned that those sometimes can be the things that divide us, not create an inclusive, equitable, justified environment. So what's another way of looking at this idea of diversity? So I'm a big CEO and I have a big corporation and we make widgets, right? I'm the biggest widget manufacturer in the world. But my widgets could be made better. So what do I need to hear? Who's going to speak up and tell me what's wrong with my widgets? What about the people who have worked at other companies? Is that a diversity? Worked in other countries, come from other cultures. Like, oh, this is how we solve this problem in my family. Or, that reminds me of another situation. Could those things be diversity? It's diversity of thought. Do we always see the same problem in the same way? No. Right? I go home to my husband and I say, you know what happened today? And I'll blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, well, you didn't get that right. It's like, okay, now I'm putting up my dukes. I'm ready for this confrontation. And he'll say, but you forgot about, it's going to rain on Tuesday. He'll have his, but you didn't look at this. And I'll go, I didn't think it is going to be rain on Tuesday. Maybe when I look at this problem again, I'll think about what's going to happen on Tuesday, and it'll give me a different perspective on this, because sometimes we can get tunnel vision, right? We're seeing that right now. We see the lines and the tunnel vision about what we think is right and what we think is wrong, and how we think other people should think, and we see people fighting on the internet all over the place. Me occasionally, sometimes too. We're having those conversations, and sometimes it's really hard to listen to. Why is this so important? Like, why has somebody got their heels dug in, right? I mean, how many people have hated going home for Thanksgiving or Christmas because, old Uncle Bob is going to show up and I've got to listen to what he has to think. Or, oh, Dad's going to tell me I shouldn't be going to Pensacola State College, right? What are some of those moments where you can go, oh, this is going to be fun? If I listen, what will I hear? Will I hear something I didn't hear before that might help me understand the perspective? You might change nobody's mind, and they might not change yours, and you might change theirs. But it's the discourse, it's the dialogue. Nelson Mandela once said, the best weapon is to sit down and talk. There's a bench in front of the Peace Center in Oslo, and it's got that inscription. So you come to the bench, and the idea is that you're just going to sit down and talk. You're going to own your narrative, but you're going to let other people own theirs, and you're going to learn. Even when you disagree, you're going to have to be able to say at some point, what can I learn if I listen? I mean, one of the things I remember from when I was going through my court case is opposing counsel came in, big guy, big suit, little me, no attorney, because by then I couldn't afford one. And I felt really intimidated. I thought, I'm outgunned here. Like, I don't know the law. I don't even basically know what I'm doing here. But I thought, oh, but he does. He's not my enemy. He's my teacher. And as soon as I flipped that switch in my brain, and that narrative became like, oh, I'm going to listen to everything he says and I'm going to take notes. And then during the break, I would ask him, so where did you go to school and what was your perspective? And he would start telling me about other cases and case law. And before I knew it, he was my best ally, even though he was opposing counsel. But because I treated him with dignity and respect, and he treated me with dignity and respect, we started to share a common interest in understanding how these cases worked. And he taught me things I would have otherwise paid, $10,000 for an attorney to teach me. But I got from him because we were able to relate on a humanitarian level. We had Ubuntu. Right? Next slide. So is there somebody in your life, oh my goodness, is there somebody in your life that you can think of that demonstrated the ethics and character? Did they teach you something? Anybody you want to share that you can think about that was an inspiration to you, that taught you to stand up and do the right thing, and why was that?
Her name is Patty Hyde. She's at LCSW.
Yay!
She's over at Lakeview Center Home Intervention. She focuses in on incorporating the whole system instead of just treating the individual. She believes that everyone deserves to have themselves heard, literally. She advocates for basically everyone, not even the ones that are receiving services, but it's really inspirational to me because she will get down on your level. She'll meet you where you are. The greatest person I've ever met in my entire life.
All right, well, lovely.
For her.
We'll have to give you a giraffe to give her.
Oh yeah, she'll love it.
All right, very good. Yes, so think about what she just said. Somebody who really is listening, helping, right? The helper over here. Listening, helping, teaching, resources, sharing. Anybody else have a role model they want to share about?
I did my student teaching in an 8th grade classroom, and the mentor teacher I had was the greatest teacher for, everything. Teaching college students, teaching 8th graders, and she told those kids every single day that she loved them.
Aww.
And it was really impactful.
So teaching, expressing emotion, love, joy, impactful. Think about these two examples. Teaching, that sounds like a value you should put down in your books, right? Be a teacher, be an educator, be a mentor. Being a mentor doesn't have to be a full-time job, right? It could be 5 minutes. 5 minutes of your time in your day to think about, can I stop and help somebody? Can they learn something from me? Or can they just feel my appreciation of them, my Ubuntu, right? My love for them as another human being. How many of us sometimes need that in the day? They said that there was a study about people who are not hugged, right? You live alone, you come to school, nobody hugs you. And that lack of touch, that lack of feeling hugged, was a factor related to poor mental health. So think about how powerful that is. And if you're dealing with somebody and they're difficult, they're obnoxious, they're narcissistic, right? We use these words all the time to describe co-students, co-workers, right? Oh my God, he was so obnoxious today, right? We've all said that. I have the worst boss in the world, except for Scott. We all have those moments where we think that. But then do we think, I wonder why he's so obnoxious? Like, what makes that guy such a narcissist? Why does he think he's so great? Like, what's going on in his life? Can we go and find out? Like, hey, what's going on with you today? How come you're like this? Why are you always yelling at everybody? Could you have those kinds of conversations, or at least, think through some of that to understand the enemy on the other side of the, who's screaming at you and why are you doing that? Instead of screaming back. It's that energy flow, right? So if somebody's yelling at you and you yell back, you've got this two people bumping up. But if somebody's yelling at you and you go, well, let's take this together, that changes the dynamic. It becomes a much more powerful interaction between two people. Next slide. So I want to give us some time for more questions and discussion. But these are sort of some of my leadership lessons learned, the things that we think about. So it's this critical thinking, seeing beyond your world, some of your basic understanding. So we all have our own perspective, right? My mom was an artist, and I used to love to go to her art class, and there'd be some model standing up there, and everybody would be painting her. But if you walked around the room, every painting looked different. Some were more modern looking, some looked like a photography, some were more Dada-esque, right? Looking very disjointed. They all had a perspective of the same thing. So how do we apply some of our own critical thinking skills to problem solving, to leadership, to making decisions? How do we include other people? How do we do a SWOT analysis? What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? So I mentioned I was a military officer. Your SWOT analysis is like something you learn to do just so automatically. Like, I've got to solve this problem. I've got to build a better widget. What am I doing right? What are my strengths? Okay, the widget works because. What are my weaknesses? We don't have enough staff. There's not enough money. We're short on time. What are my threats? I'm limited because we have a competitor who might be making the same widget better. What are my opportunities? Who can I go to that will teach me how to make a better widget? Who in my staff? Like, if I walked around every department and I asked everybody their opinion about why our widgets aren't the best in the world, I might find a different answer from engineering, from human resources, from payroll, from sales. Everybody will have a different perspective on why the widget doesn't work. And then the mentoring. How are we mentoring others? Because I think that's an important piece, especially big organizations, small organizations. What's your succession plan? We may want to create our own businesses, start our own, start your own small business, or go work for a company. But how are you including other people in what you're doing and working as a team, right? Be a good team player. No I in team. How are you being inclusive and building your teams and then mentoring other people? Because what if, someday you quit your job or you get fired and somebody else has to take over your job, or you want to grow your business? How are you planning to have other people who are part of your partnership, who are part of what you're doing? Next slide. So I think at the end of the day, there are always going to be the questions about when would you say something or see something, when will you stick your neck out, and when would you do it for somebody else? So maybe you're not the one being picked on, but somebody else over here is. Would you go, wait a minute, like, that's not fair, that's not right? You know, you can't pick on her or him or this one or that one because they're different, they're too tall, they're too short, you like them, you don't like them. They have a right to work. I always say everybody deserves a safe place to work. That's one of our models. We have a conference, we call it the Workplace Promise Institute. And every year we do a conference, that's kind of the motto of our conference. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. And we try to teach safe skills for the workplace. So, I mean, those are some of my lessons learned. Those are some of my takeaways. Those are some of the instructions in the book, which, if I haven't mentioned, you get to keep the books, the giraffes, the pens, everything in front of you is your school supplies for this year. We're very grateful to International Paper, who gave us a grant this past year so that we could buy books and distribute them in the Pensacola area. So that's why you have the books, and the giraffes is from International Paper. So I'm gonna, I think, end this here. I think, do we have the QR code? Okay, that's it.
There.
Okay. Do I need to pass those out?
Everyone can just take a picture of it as they leave with their phone, and it gives them access to the survey.
Okay. So I wanted to leave time for more discussion and questions.
I'm just curious, why did you have to hire your own attorney when you were doing whistleblowing?
So yeah, that's a really, so I was a government employee. So, and you would think that there would be some in-house, but it becomes very adversarial. And the only way to protect your own rights when whether you're federal or private sector, is you need your own attorney. And so for a long time, I didn't know I even needed to think about that. But then I was talking to the Office of Special Counsel, had attorneys where I filed my complaint. And at one point, you know, we were talking about and I said to her, well, what does settlement look like? What's my options here? And she said, well, you'll need to hire an attorney. I can't advise you on that. I work for the government. And I went, oh, I'm here from the government and I'm not here to help. And that's when I started talking to attorneys, and I hired an attorney for a short while. Then I left government, was running out of money, and I ended up having to do this myself. And you know, the attorney said, you're a smart girl, go figure it out. And I thought, well, I got to find other people who know how to do this. And that's when I was looking for like peer networks, because I did a lot of peer support with the military and I couldn't find one. So I created them, and then everybody started coming to me. Yes, ma'am.
Did your whistleblowing make a difference?
In some ways it did, and in a lot of ways it didn't, because I wouldn't do the awards on the contracts. That's why I lost my position, because it was the retaliation over not awarding the contract. But because I kind of stuck to my guns on, no, you shouldn't do that, and you should recuse yourself, and it was complicated. But that conflict of interest or that misappropriation of the funds didn't happen. Now I lost my job and we lost a lot of the program. So that was sort of, for me, the bad part, the bad outcome was seeing all the contracts and all the work get shut down. And it took I was the Defense Suicide Prevention Office, so it took almost 10 years for them to get back that same level of funding and work on some of these things. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, so then you won.
I personally won my case.
So what does that mean for you?
So for me, my option was for a retirement benefit. And so I left government in 2017. I won my case in 2020, and they gave me my retirement benefits dating back to when I left government.
But you lost that time in between.
Yeah, well, they
build into it.
No, I lost my amount of years for full retirement, but I got this, they call it like a disability benefit retirement. So I got that and they paid me from 2017 to 2020. They gave me a back pay, and then they've paid me forward, which is, I took that money and I built Whistleblowers of America with some of the money they gave me so that we would have a peer support network and we could start helping other people who were going through the same thing. Because one of the things I found was that other than law firms and reporters, there really wasn't this opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who could say, yeah, you need an attorney, or your evidence isn't ready yet, do these things before you file. Those become the options or the opportunities to really help each other through that lived experience networking. And, we use lived experience a lot in mental health with, like veterans to veterans, cops to cops, survivors, patients to patients. So if you're newly diagnosed with cancer, it's really helpful to talk to somebody who's been through cancer treatment. It's that same theory that somebody who's been through whistleblowing can really help and mentor somebody who is like new to this whole process. And we hear from people whose whistleblowing was 10, 20 years ago, and they're still very involved in trying to put a message out there or help other people learn. It's a really interesting place, I think, where you see people get stuck and really need that ability to feel they can vent and then feel validated by somebody else. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
I have a question. How did you, know, it was, I don't know, but know it was time to, I guess, whistleblow or, get that courage in it?
So how did I know it was time to whistleblow? I got mad. I was getting all of this, these emails, and it was just like this, what is going on? So I went to a very senior person, and I told him the story of here's what's happening. I didn't think of it as whistleblowing at the time. I thought, I'm a senior person in the Defense Department. I have listened to all this training about the see something, say something, what are conflicts of interest, what's appearances of impartiality. And I thought I was just doing my job. I was doing what I was trained to do. And so when I went to him and made my disclosures, and he took care of it for a while, but then unfortunately he wasn't well and left. He retired, passed away, and then other people came in who were more aligned with the person I had made the disclosure about. So those alliances shifted, and then I ended up pushed out of my job because of that one person I had made my disclosure about. And that's when I called HR, and that was the first time somebody called me a whistleblower. It was like, oh, this is what happened, and here's what I think. And she said, oh, this is what you should do. And she called me a whistleblower at that time. And I thought, no, what? No. And I thought it was a little much, but she said, I'm going to send you an email and just follow the instructions in the email I'm going to send you. And when I was so I don't know what to do, so here's something to do. So I just followed what she said to do, and it was all about what they call PPP, prohibited personnel practices. There are laws that, especially for federal employees, or there used to be, these laws that protect federal employees, because you're supposed to be able to say something when you see something. Your loyalty is to the Constitution, not to the agency, not to your bosses. You're really supposed to have this other more patriotic loyalty. And then because of that, you're supposed to have all these added protections, which is why, right now with some of the people being fired, why are they able to go to court is because they do have these protections that say, no, you can't just randomly fire federal employees. You're supposed to be able to bring these cases to court, which is why there are so many back and forth with the courts. The Supreme Court has gotten involved in a few of these cases. I mean, that's our system of check and balances in this country. That's what due process rights are, is you're supposed to be able to do these things. Anybody else?
Do you live in Pensacola now?
Do I what?
Do you live in Pensacola now?
Yes. Yeah, I left DC in 2019, and we live down here. My office is down 98. Scott volunteers over there, so anybody else wants to volunteer, you can talk to Scott. He'll hook you up. But I do appreciate us being able to share this time with you today. I think you have these QR codes. We can pass them around. You can sign in, sign out, right? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
That's evaluations, if you'll please go in and do your evaluation.
Let me just see, did I forget anything? Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. That is me. That is our website. That's more about Be a Giraffe. We do monthly roundtables on the last Tuesday of every month. We usually have a topic. We have speakers. Like this last month, we had 2 guest journalists, a former CNN reporter and a freelance writer, come and talk about how do they work on whistleblower cases. We've talked about dirty money. I think we're going to be doing another family session. So we're always trying to find interesting topics, and would encourage you to check out our website. You want to learn more about Be a Giraffe, you want me to do this talk somewhere else, I'm happy to do that. And I think I gave you back some time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, it's